Imagine waking up one morning and the sun is gone. It's not hidden behind clouds, not blocked by rain, just gone. In the year 536 AD, something terrifying happened to our planet. The sky darkened across Europe, the Middle East, and large parts of Asia. The sun, our source of life and warmth, became a dim, ghostly disk, barely visible through a thick, mysterious veil of ash. What should have been bright daylight looked like a permanent twilight. And this nightmare lasted not for hours, not for days, but for over a year. Historians today call this the beginning of the darkest decade in human history. The Byzantine historian Procopius wrote something absolutely chilling about this time. He said, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness." Like the moon? Can you imagine the fear? People began to panic. Farmers watched in horror as their crops failed to grow. Summer arrived on the calendar, but the warmth never did. In fact, historical records show that snow fell in China during the summer months. Temperatures dropped dramatically across the entire northern hemisphere. The world had entered a sudden, inexplicable global climate catastrophe. Nobody knew why. Without sunlight, the very foundation of society crumbled. Crops stopped growing. Fields that should have been green and full of life turned brown and barren. Harvests completely collapsed. Grain supplies, the lifeblood of cities and empires, vanished. Across Europe and Asia, a devastating famine began to spread like a shadow. Entire villages started starving. Parents had to watch their own children weaken from hunger, completely helpless. The once mighty Roman world, which was already fragile, began to collapse under this immense pressure. Trade routes that connected civilizations slowed to a crawl. Cities, once bustling with life, struggled to survive. Something even worse was on the horizon. Just try to put yourself in their shoes. A sky that never clears, a sun that offers no warmth. Cold, bleak summers, and an endless gnawing hunger. It's no surprise that people believed the end of the world had begun. Religious panic spread everywhere. Many were convinced that God had abandoned humanity. Others feared that demons had been unleashed, or that this was some form of divine punishment. Without the lens of modern science, the darkness had no logical explanation. And in that vacuum, fear spreads much faster than famine. Today, tree ring studies from all over the world show something extraordinary. Right around the year 536 AD, tree growth suddenly and dramatically slowed down. Scientists now know this is a clear sign that sunlight and temperatures dropped sharply across the globe. Ice core samples drilled deep in Greenland and Antarctica reveal another clue: distinct layers of volcanic ash. This is the smoking gun, evidence that a massive volcanic eruption had filled the atmosphere with so much dust and debris that it blocked the sun's light from reaching the planet's surface. But the horror didn't end there. Just a few years later, as societies were still reeling, another catastrophe struck. In 541 AD, a deadly and terrifying disease emerged in the Byzantine Empire. It became known as the Plague of Justinian. Riding the very trade routes that were struggling to stay open, the plague spread with terrifying speed through cities and ports. At its peak, it estimated that thousands of people were dying every single day in the capital city of Constantinople. Even the emperor himself, Justinian I, was infected, though he managed to survive. Entire towns were emptied. Mass graves were dug to deal with the overwhelming number of dead. Historians now estimate that this plague killed tens of millions of people, possibly up to a third or even half of the population in the affected regions. And it all began shortly after the sun disappeared. Modern researchers now believe the eruption responsible for the initial darkness may have occurred in Iceland or somewhere else in the northern hemisphere. The sheer scale of it is hard to comprehend. The volcanic dust and aerosols formed a massive shield in the atmosphere, a stratospheric veil that covered the globe. Sunlight was blocked. Global temperatures are thought to have dropped by up to 2.5 degrees Celsius worldwide. For medieval societies that depended entirely on predictable seasons and successful harvests, this was an absolute cataclysm. Agriculture collapsed. Political systems weakened and fractured. Entire civilizations entered a period of steep decline. The world remained unstable for years, even decades. This period, from roughly 536 to 545 AD, is now called one of the worst times in all of human history to be alive. It was a perfect storm of war, famine, disease, and climate chaos. The Roman world fractured for good. Europe entered centuries of instability, we often call the Dark Ages, and millions upon millions of people died without ever knowing why their world had fallen apart. To them, it seemed as if the sky itself had turned against humanity. It took more than 1,400 years for us to finally piece together the truth. It wasn't divine wrath or demons. It was geology. Ice core analysis, volcanic geology, and climate science finally revealed the cause. A series of massive volcanic eruptions. The first one happened in 536 AD then. Another major one occurred around 540 AD together. They plunged the Earth into a prolonged volcanic winter. Ash and sulfur filled the stratosphere, reflecting sunlight back into space. The planet cooled dramatically, and human history was changed forever. We often believe that we control nature, that our technology makes us immune to its power. But the events of 536 AD serve as a terrifying reminder of a simple truth. Our civilizations are fragile. A single massive eruption, a single global climate shock, has the power to rewrite the future of the world. And the people living through it might never understand what is happening to them. For those who lived through that dark decade, the sky stayed dark. The harvests failed year after year. Disease spread without mercy. And the sun, the eternal symbol of life itself, looked like a distant, dying star. The year 536 AD wasn't just a disaster. It was a moment when humanity was forced to confront how powerless it truly was against the forces of the planet. And for many, it must have truly felt like the end of the world. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into one of history's darkest moments fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let me know in the comments what other historical mysteries you'd like to explore. See you next time.